Oh yeah, mon cœur fait
Welcome to South Louisiana and the Barataria-Terrebonne National Estuary. We're going to tell you some stories today. Stories of the birth of this beautiful estuary, stories of the people who live here, stories of the plants and animals who also call this place home.
Bien, ça va bien. Again, our people here, we've had our people been living in South Louisiana now for a couple of hundred years since the Louisiana Purchase, which is the bicentennial this year. And through the years, we've had to move along and actually migrate. Our people basically settled in New Orleans and then, of course, came to the coast. We have one of the most productive coastlines in the United States. And because of that productivity, the fishing has been tremendous. The oysters, the fish, the shrimp have been fantastic. But we've had hurricanes and other problems, and those hurricanes have caused us to kind of move back. But along with that, we've had this land loss problem, which is also attacking the communities. And these are all problems that we have. Now, we talked about the levee system, but if you look at the levee system, on one side of the levee, now we're 23 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. The water on the outside of the system at a plus 2 foot elevation, the salinity is around 10 parts per thousand. The water on the inside of the levee system is at a minus 5 foot elevation and has 0 parts per thousand. So it's not at all salty. It is very fresh, and the outside is very saline.
So this levee is very important in maintaining that salinity difference between the outside and the inside.
Yeah, but again, talking about the problems that we had, again, the communities were on the coastline in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. We had one of the largest communities on the Louisiana coast, Camanada, had 1,700 people. Now, back in 1893, that was a lot of people. A hurricane hit and killed half the population. The survivors of that storm moved to Leeville and then the Golden Meadow in this area. Okay, Leeville is about 12 miles from the coast. Mm-hmm. 7 out of my 8 great-grandparents lived at Camanada on the Louisiana coast. 3 out of 4 of my grandparents lived in Leeville, 12 miles from the coast. My parents, my mother was born here in Golden Meadow, 23 miles from the coast. My father, 35 miles from the coast. And now I'm raising my children 40 miles from the coast. And what's happened to my family is what's happened to the communities here in coastal Louisiana because of this land loss issue. We've come further and further up. Now, years ago, we didn't need this levee. 100 years ago, the marshes between the Gulf of Mexico and here, the marshes in the Berry Islands protected us. We didn't need hurricane protection. That's why our people moved here. But because of the land loss issue, the Gulf of Mexico has basically gotten 20 to 30 miles closer to everyone who lives in South Louisiana. And that's why we had to build this hurricane protection system in this place.
And the closer the Gulf gets to us, the higher the storm surge during hurricanes and even minor storms, as we're finding.
That's exactly right. Years ago, you know, it took a very powerful hurricane to put water anywhere near this area. Well, in a 9-month period, over the last year and a half, in a 9-month period, we had 2 tropical storms and a hurricane that didn't hit this area. And those tropical storms pushed a 6-foot wall of water, 7 foot, and 7.2. Those 3 storms would have flooded this area had it not been for this levee system. And years ago, 100 years ago, we didn't even need this levee system. That water would never have reached this far inland. And that's really the problem for our communities where we live. We live in a very special area. We're here because we are, you know, the other places are on the beach because they're tourist centers. This place produces for the country. We produce seafood. 30% of the nation's seafood produced by wetlands is produced here in Louisiana. When you look at oil production, the infrastructure that produces 30% of the nation's infrastructure for oil and gas keeps that price of gasoline lower than it would be today. This place protects that. That's 30% of the nation's. We have the only deep offshore oil port off of this place. 16% of all the foreign oil that comes into the United States comes through this area. And with the land laws that we have, it affects not just the people in Louisiana, but if you live in Iowa, the price of your fuel, if you're a farmer, the price of your fertilizer, and the price of your chicken even, because the chicken feed is made from fish that are produced in the marshes of Louisiana, Menhaden. So all of these things make this place very important to the rest of the nation. But we have a very unique culture. I grew up in a community that all the adults spoke French. 7 generations here. I'm the first generation to speak English before I spoke French. And that's because this area is so productive that we pretty much could live our life the way we wanted without too much interference.
So Windell, tell me how this levee protects us. What happens, for instance, if rain falls inside the levee? Doesn't that present a problem with flooding?
Exactly. See, the normal situation, the water, of course, would just drain off from the highland, and that's another unique thing about South Louisiana. Our highland is near the waterway. It's near the bayou. And the water would just drain off. But when you have to build a levee system to protect from hurricane flooding, that means you've basically developed a bowl. So any water that falls in, any rainfall that falls in, has to be pumped out. And we have pump stations. We have 6 pump stations that can move about 1.2 million gallons per minute.
Wow.
Well, we have a lot of rainfall. Our average rainfall in Louisiana is about 60 inches a year.
60.
So that's a lot of rainfall. But yeah, that rainfall has kept, when we have a regular rainfall year, we keep the marshes a little bit fresher. We had a drought situation for a couple of years. The water intake for our drinking water is 45 miles from the Gulf. And with that drought, people started drinking salt water. You could taste it. And it was unhealthy. It was not drinkable water because of that problem. And years ago, we never had that problem. Our saltwater line was only a couple of miles from the Gulf. Now that saltwater line came in 45 miles and threatened our drinking water. Well, luckily, we started getting more rainfall, and we're taking some action right now to stop that salt from coming in. But we need to take bigger and stronger actions to do that.
As you can see, this is a very complicated issue, this land loss problem, and it requires complicated solutions. It's a very big problem, and it requires very big solutions. And all of those solutions seem to involve bringing the river back in. The river is what built this land, and it's the river that will help to rebuild it. But these projects take lots of time and lots of money. We have no time to lose.